that I welcome you all to this remarkable occasion, the launch of the book, A Voice of Reason, which is a collection of my father's parliamentary speeches throughout his 3-decade-long career as a legislator. Today, we gather here not just to celebrate a written work, but to honor a lifetime of commitment, leadership, and unwavering dedication to the principles that bind us as a society. Rauf Hakim, to many present here, is a lawyer, a politician, and the leader of the Muslim Congress. To me, he's simply my dad, the one who taught me what it means to be selfless, resilient, persistent, and committed to anything that we take up. For 30 years, he has graced the halls of Parliament, navigating the complexities of governance with a rare blend of wisdom and passion. Having witnessed the evolution of our political landscape throughout the years, he has been a beacon of hope to many, uplifting not just the Muslim community, but all citizens of this nation. His experience is not just a reflection of longevity in public service, but a testament to the impact one individual can make when guided by integrity and a profound sense of responsibility. As we gather here to celebrate a voice that has always been fair, fearless, and unwavering, I'm reminded of a particular incident which made me realize how much Dad really cared for the causes he stands up for. I remember during the recent pandemic, when a very disturbing measure was taken against our community, and Dad was one of the first people to speak up against it. The instant reaction from many, including those of the Muslim community itself, was that, why on earth is he making a fuss about this at this hour? There are other things to worry about. And I remember, obviously being a daughter, being alarmed at the backlash that he was facing and saying to him, why did you have to say anything? You could have just waited and seen if the situation gets better and then spoken. But I will always remember what he told me that day. He said, Tangam, what is happening is wrong, and a wrong will not right itself on its own or with the passage of time unless you raise your voice against it and stand firm in your beliefs. He said, this is something I want you to remember, even if I'm not there one day. Don't ever fear what others would say. If you think something is wrong, you voice yourself loud and clear and leave the rest to God. And coming from someone like him, I know for sure this book will be a very compelling read. This book is not just a reflection of the past. It is an invitation to engage with the ideas, debates, and discussions that have and will continue to shape our collective future. I hope his words spark new conversations, inspire young leaders, and encourage all of us to remain committed to the ongoing work of building a stronger, fairer, more just, and a united society. And now, as I come to the end of my speech, and before we begin the formal proceedings for the day, I'd like to take a moment to thank all of you distinguished invitees for accepting our invitation and joining us here today on this special occasion. Your presence is indeed a reminder of the impact that our words, when spoken with purpose, can have. Thank you, and hope you have a pleasant evening.
Mr. Faiz Mustafa, President's Council, Mr. Imtiaz Bakir Maka, my parliamentary colleague, Professor Upul Disa Nayaka, former Vice Chancellor of the Peradeniya University, Professor B.A. Husseimia, one of the editors of the volumes of my speeches, my friend Tilina Tenukon, my family members, ladies and gentlemen. මට තියෙන්නේ අද විශේෂ අමුත්තන් හැටියට පැමිණි මේ මගේ පාර්ලිමේන්තු කතනයන් එක්රස් කරපු වෙළුම් 4ක දොරට වැඩීමේ උත්සවය ඔබතුමන්ලා ඉදිරියේ මා පිළිබඳව විශාල විග්‍රහයක් කරපු හැමදෙනාටම මගේ ස්තුතිය පුද කරනත් ඒ ගැන පිළිගැනීමේ කතාවක් විශේෂයෙන්ම ඒගොල්ලන්ට ஸ்தூதி කරන අතர உண்மையில் இந்த நிகழ்வில் ஒரு ஏற்புரையாகத்தான் என்னுடைய இந்த உரையை நான் செய்ய இருக்கிறேன். இதுவரையும் அதிதிகளாக வந்து என்னுடைய உரைகளின் தொகுப்பாக 4 புத்தகங்களாக வெளிவந்திருக்கிற இந்த தொகுப்பை வெளியிட்டு வைக்கின்ற இந்த நிகழ்வில் என்னை பாராட்டி பேசிய அனைவருக்கும் ஒரு ஏற்புரையாக இந்த உரையை செய்யலாம்னு நினைக்கிறேன். I want to share some random thoughts of mine, starting with my respected senior, President's Council, Mr. Faiz Mustafa. It was way back in the early 80s when I joined these chambers as a junior. It was my good fortune that I happened to meet my late leader, M.H.M. Ashraf, who had come there as a refugee from the Eastern Province. And it was Mr. Mustafa who had provided him refuge in his home. Actually, his house had got burnt in the Tamil Muslim riots, and Mr. Ashraf didn't have a place to live in, so he came to Colombo. It was Mr. Mustafa who had provided a room for him to stay. Mrs. Amina Mustafa was a gracious host. So I was a junior there, where that's the first time I got exposed to my late leader, Mr. M.H.M. Ashraf. From there began my political career. It was the time when Mr. Mustafa himself was chosen by late President J.R. Jayawardeneh to be a government negotiator in Thimpu talks with the LTT. And thereafter, we had several discussions, and there was this all-party conference that was summoned. Sarvapaksha Samuluwak කැඳෙව්වා J.R. Jayawardeneh ජනාධිපතිතුමන්. ඒ සර්වපාක්ෂික සමුළුවේ ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම සාකච්ඡාවට භාජනය වුණේ ද්‍රවිඩ සන්නද්ධ කණ්ඩායම්වල ඉදිරිපත් වූ ඉල්ලීම්. තිම්පු සාකච්ඡාවන් පදනම් කරගත්තේ ඒ සන්නද්ධ කණ්ඩායම්වල ඉල්ලීම් පිළිබඳව. එක ඉල්ලීමක් තමයි උතුරු නැගෙනහිර ඒකාබද්ධ විය යුතුයි කියන ඉල්ලීම. ඒත් එක්කම අපි දැක්කා 1987 ඉන්දු ලංකා ගිවිසුම අත්සන් තැබීම. ඒ ඉන්දු ලංකා ගිවිසුම උතුරු නැගෙනහිර වැසෙන මුස්ලිම් ජනතාවට විශාල පාවාදීමක් වුණා. ඒ උඩ ගොඩ නැගුණු පක්ෂයක් තමයි ශ්‍රී ලංකා මුස්ලිම් කොංග්‍රසය. බොහෝ දෙනා මේක වැරදි අවබෝධයක් කරගන්නවා. අපි ජාතිකත්වයේ පදනම් කරගෙන පක්ෂයක් පටන් ගත්තයි කියලා. නමුත් පක්ෂ පටන් ගැනීමට හේතු වුණේ මුස්ලිම් ජනතාවගේ අභිලාෂයන් සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම බිඳ දමමින්. ඉන්දු ලංකා ගිවිසුමෙන් පසුව එවකට නැගෙනහිර පළාත් නියෝජනය කරපු ප්‍රවීණ මන්ත්‍රීවරුන් මුස්ලිම් මන්ත්‍රීවරුන් 5 දෙනා විරුද්ධ වෙද්දිත් ඒක නොසලකා එවකට ජනාධිපතිතුමන් ඉන්දු ලංකාවේ ගිවිසුම අත්සන් කරලා ඒත් එක්කම මුස්ලිම් ජනයා අතරේ විශාල කැළඹීමක් ඇති වුණා. ඒක තමයි ශ්‍රී ලංකා මුස්ලිම් කාංග්‍රසයේ බිහිවීමට ප්‍රථම හේතුව. நான் இந்த 3 பாஷைகளும் பேச வேண்டும் என்பதால் கொஞ்சம் மாறி மாறி சில விஷயங்களை சொல்லிக் கொண்டு போகிறேன். இந்திய இலங்கை ஒப்பந்தத்தின் பிற்பாடு ஸ்ரீலங்கா முஸ்லிம் காங்கிரஸுடைய அபரிமிதமான வளர்ச்சி எல்லோரும் கண்ட விவகாரம். அதை தொடர்ந்து வந்த மாகாண சபை தேர்தல்கள், அவற்றிலே வடகிழக்கு மாகாண சபையிலே முஸ்லிம் காங்கிரஸ் பிரதான எதிர்க்கட்சியாக வந்த நிலையில் அதுக்கு பிற்பாடு நடந்த பாராளுமன்ற தேர்தலில் நான் ஆர்வத்தோடு எங்களுடைய மறைந்த தலைவர் மர்ஹூம் இமைச்சர் மஷ்ரஃபோடு கட்சி நடவடிக்கைகளில் நாடு பூராவிலும் ஈடுபட ஆரம்பித்தேன். அந்த பின்னணியில் தான் என்னுடைய அரசியல் ஆரம்பிக்கிறது. அந்த அரசியலின் அந்த ஆரம்பத்தின் பிரதிபலிப்பாகத்தான் ஈற்றிலே முதலிலே 6 வருஷ காலம் என்னுடைய மறைந்த தலைவர் எதிர்க்கட்சியிலே இருந்தார். I must say here one thing very which is a remarkable achievement for a political leader. I am sometimes ashamed that I have been there for 30 years but have not achieved as much as what Mr. Ashraf has achieved. My late leader was there in Parliament. Everybody would be surprised. His parliamentary life was a mere 12 years. 6 years in opposition, 6 years in government. His monumental achievements were what shaped us into effective politicians. මම පාර්ලිමේන්තු ගැලේරියට ගිහිල්ලා එතුමන් විපක්ෂයේ ඉන්න කාලේ එතුමන්ගේ කතාවන්ට සවන් දෙනවා. ඉම්තියාස් බාකිර් මා කරවෙලේ 1989 පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ප්‍රථම වතාවට නවකයෙක් හැටියට එතුමන් අපේ නායකතුමන් එක්ක ඒ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ හිටියා. විශාල අභියෝග එතුමන්ට තිබ්බා. විශේෂයෙන්ම ප්‍රේමදාස ජනාධිපතිතුමන් ජනාධිපති වීමට ප්‍රධානතම හේතුව අෂරෆ් එතුමන්ගේ සහයෝගය. නමුත් එතුමන් විපක්ෂයේ හිටිද්දී එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයෙන් තමයි වැඩියෙන්ම එතුමන්ට අභියෝග එල්ල කරේ. නමුත් එතුමන් සැලුන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ කතාවලට අපි අහුම්කම් දෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒත් එක්කම පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ මේ හරබර විවාදයන්ට සවන් දෙමින් හැඩගැස්සුණු අය තමයි අපි. මේ වෙලුම් 4න් විශේෂයෙන්ම ඉංග්‍රීසි කතනයන් තමයි වැඩිම තියෙන්නේ. ඒකට ඇතුළත් වෙනවා සමරු දේශන කීපයක්. ශෝක ප්‍රකාශයක් තියෙනවා. නමුත් ඒ සමරු දේශනයන් පිළිබඳව මම ඉංග්‍රීසි භාෂාවෙන් ටිකක් කියන්නම්. There are some memorial orations which I had given outside Parliament about various important political personalities. One is late Senator Amy Aziz. In my opinion, he was one of the finest debaters in the Senate. And his collection of his speeches is a big guide to all of us. The variety of subjects we've handled. Then I have spoken about Dr. M.C.M. Khalil. I have spoken about S.J. Vichelvanayagam. I have delivered these memorial orations in different places, in different parts of the world. I had done the Amarthalingam memorial oration because officially invited by those parties to give a memorial oration in memory of the departed leaders. Another is Mr. M. Sivasidamparam. In my opinion, one of the finest criminal lawyers in this country. He had a guttural voice which can impress anyone. So there are several such memorial, including Lakshman Kadirgama, another respected foreign ministers of this country, and one of the finest orator par excellence that we have seen. So, researching to speak about such leaders, we got enthused with their life and times and the dedication and commitment to this country's democracy. So, அதை சொல்லுகின்ற அதே நான் இந்த ஞாபகார்த்த உரைகளை பற்றி சொல்லிக்கொண்டு வந்தேன். அந்த ஞாபகார்த்த உரைகளிலே அடங்கியிருக்கிற விஷயங்கள் அவர்கள் அந்தந்த ஆளுமைகளின் உண்மையான பரிமாணங்களை நான் விரிவாக ஆராய்ந்து அந்த ஞாபகார்த்த உரைகளை நிகழ்த்தியிருக்கிறேன். அந்தந்த கட்சிகளின் அழைப்பின் பேரில் நான் பாராளுமன்றம் நுழைந்த முதல் வருஷமே, முதல் தடவையே என்னுடைய மறைந்த தலைவர் எனக்கு ஒரு மிகப்பெரிய கௌரவத்தை செய்தார். එතුමන් මාව පත් කරා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ නියෝජ්‍ය කාරක සභාපති හැටියට. මගේ ප්‍රථම පාර්ලිමේන්තු ප්‍රවේශයේම. ඒක මට විශාල අත්දැකීමක් වුණා. පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ මුලසුන දරන ඒ වාග්ය මට ලැබුණාම මට ඒකෙන් විශාල ආభాෂයක් ලැබුණා. අනිත් කතාවලට සමන් දෙන්නත් ඒ වගේම පාර්ලිමේන්තුව පාලනය කිරීමේ ඒ කාර්යභාරය මට ඊටාම සියුම් ලෙස ඉටු කිරීමට පුළුවන්කම දෙනවා. වරක් මගේ නායකතුමන්ව දැඩි ලෙස අවවාද කරන්න මට සිදු වුණා මුලාසන ඉඳගෙන. එතුමන් ඊටාම තරහෙන් මාව ඇමතුවා. මට අවනත වුණේම නැහැ. නමුත් මම ඒකෙන් සැලුන්නේ නැහැ. එතුමන් උත්සාහ කළා මාව මට්ටු කරගෙන කතාව කරගෙන යන්න. මම ඉඩ දුන්නෙම නැහැ. එතුමා වාඩි කැවෙව්වා. ඉන්පසු එතුමන් මා ළඟට ඇවිල්ලා කිව්වා, I am very proud of you. ඔබතුමා පිළිබඳව මම ඊටාම සතුටු වෙනවා. එලෙස මම වැරදි කියලා මම දන්නවා. නමුත් කෙලින් හිටගෙන මට ඒ කලහකාරී ලෙස හැසිරෙන්න ඉඩ දුන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක තමයි කළ යුත්තේ. මූලාසනේ හිටියනම් ඔක කළ යුතුමයි. So he was such a it's very difficult to explain the personality of Ashraf's caliber. Just 6 years as a opposition parliamentarian, 6 years as a cabinet minister. Mere 12 years, he became a trailblazer, and his achievements are monumental. So that is what makes us all feel so small. Right? Of course, we have perhaps, as ministers, we have done various things, development work, everywhere. I have, in my own ministerial careers, I've achieved much. But then, my late leader's achievements just within a 12-year span of parliamentary life is unmatched when you compare his services with a variety of other leaders. So it gives me so much of pride to have been part of his lieutenants, having learned the rudiments of parliamentary practice from people like him, and of course, rudiments of the law from my respected senior. So these are my random thoughts, but then going back, mata අද වගේ මතකයි LTT සංවිධානයත් එක්ක රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමන්ගේ ආණ්ඩු කාලේ ඒ දූත පිරිසේ රජයේ දූත පිරිසේ මාත් සමාජිකයෙක් වෙලා හිටියා. විශාල අභියෝගාත්මක යුගයක්. ඒ සාකච්ඡාවේ මම රජයේ පිළේ කෙනෙක් හැටියට සහභාගී වෙද්දී මැද හරිය අපිට මුණ දෙන්න සිදු වුණේ අන්තර්පාලන ව්‍යුහයක් ඇති කිරීම පිළිබඳව LTT සංවිධානයත් එක්ක නෝර්වේජියානු සත්කාර පිරිස රහසිගතව සාකච්ඡා කරගෙන යනවා ආණ්ඩුවත් එක්කත් LTT සංවිධානයත් එක්කත්. එතකොට මගේ අපේ ෆයිස් මුස්තෆා මැතිතුමන් බ්‍රිතාන්‍යයේ අපේ මහා කොමසාරිස් වෙලා හිටියා. ඒ අන්තර්පාලන ව්‍යුහය පිළිබඳව කෙටුම්පත එතුමන්ගේ නිල නිවසට ඇවිල්ලා අපිට මුලින් බලන්න සැලසුවා එරික් සොල්හයිම් මැතිතුමා. ඒක දැකපු ගමන් මටත් ෆයිස් මුස්තෆා මැතිතුමන් අර ඒකේ තියෙන නීතිමය ගැටලු පිළිබඳව බලලා මේකේ මුස්ලිම් ජනතාව පිළිබඳව මුස්ලිම් සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම අපට කිසි විටක එතන උතුරු නැගෙනහිර අපි සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම කොම් වෙන ආකාරයට තමයි ඒ කෙටුම්පත සකස් කරලා තිබුණේ. அந்த இடைக்கால நிர்வாகம் சம்பந்தமாக வடகிழக்கு இடைக்கால நிர்வாகம் சம்பந்தமாக இருந்த அந்த ஏற்பாடுகள் முழுமையாக முஸ்லிம் சமூகத்தை புறத்துதுக்கி செய்யப்பட்ட ஒரு விஷயமாக நாங்கள் கண்டோம். அந்த நிலையிலே அதை எதிர்ப்பதற்கான தீர்மானத்தை உடனடியாக எடுத்தது மாத்திரமல்ல, அந்த இடைக்கால நிர்வாக சபை அதை தொடர்ந்து வந்த then we had this tsunami coming. With the tsunami, peace talks got stalled, but then we had this parallel donor conferences being arranged by the co-chairs of the peace talks. It was Washington, Japan, Washington, Tokyo, then Norway, then Delhi was also involved in the peace talks as facilitators. The Norwegians were the facilitators, but their co-chair concept was designed. அந்த பேச்சுவார்த்தையிலே சுனாமி ව්‍යසනයෙන් පසුව අපට ලැබෙන්න තිබුණු විදේශ ආධාර ලබා ගැනීම සඳහා ආධාර සමුළු පැවැත්වුවා. ඒ සමුළු වලට අපිත් සාකච්ඡාවට සහභාගී වෙන ලාංකික නිල දූත පිරිස හැටියට අපිට සහභාගී වෙන්න සිදු වුණා. විශාල මුදල් සම්භාරයක් ඩොලර් බිලියන 4ක් වැනි විශාල මුදලක් ජාත්‍යන්තර ප්‍රජාව විශේෂයෙන්ම මේ සාම සාකච්ඡාව සාර්ථක කර ගැනීම සඳහා ඒකට LTT සංවිධානයේ පොළඹවීම සඳහා ඒක සූදානම් වෙ හිටියා ඒ මුදල දෙපාර්ශ්වයටම බුද්ධි විදීමට අවකාශ ලබා දීම සඳහා. there was this provision to allow the two parties to share the donor conferences pledges to improve, rehabilitate and reconstruct the Northeast. There again, this particular machinery was designed called PTOMS, Post-Tsunami Operational Mechanism. That was also totally one-sided, and Muslims got totally sidelined in the entire system. There again, then we started agitations in the East. The moment I saw the draft, we knew this is going to totally marginalize the Muslims in the Northeast. So continuously, this type of challenges we faced, and we made sure that none of those things became a reality. And my experience in talking to Prabhakaran direct, one-to-one discussion with the late LTT leader is also something that I can never forget. He was so personal with me. He used to discuss even about his mother, his parents, his brother in Denmark, and about the achievements, the educational achievements of his children. Since we were talking in Tamil, he was more open with me. But at the end of the talk, what he said was, "Mata me Prabhakaran පැවසූ දෙයක් පිළිබඳව මම කිව යුතුයි." කිව්වා මේ සාම සාකච්ඡාව ගියාවේ ඔබතුමා මාත් එක්ක එකතු වෙලා අපි වෙනම පාර්ලිමේන්තුවක් හදාගමු. That was his original. I immediately came back and reported this to the Prime Minister, that this man is not going to settle for anything less than his own parliament. This is what he told me in my personal discussions with him. So I knew far ahead of the peace talks breaking down that one day this is not going to go, because he was totally focused only on a military solution. In fact, I felt very sorry when I saw what happened to him finally. He had built up that rapport with me. Tamil Chelvan used to send me messages all the time about various difficulties we faced in the peace talks. There was this Sri Lanka monitoring mission, which was when there were violations of the ceasefire was to be reported. We had several such violations taking place against the Muslims in the Northeast. But then some of those matters we were able to resolve it by simply a call to both the SLMM and then thereafter with the LTT. But then unfortunately, these things now is part of the history, but we have had several such experiences and things to narrate. But then Parliament is only a collection of my speeches, but Parliament is not simply a place where you talk in the chamber, but then much happens in the committees. And that is where most of the real work takes place. So I have been part of several select committees of Parliament, select committees that have been appointed to introduce reforms to the Constitution, enact a new Constitution. I have been part of 3 such select committees, though most of it didn't succeed, some of which succeeded, but we were able to introduce important reforms. Reforms ගැන කතා කරද්දී අපි කියන්න ඕනේ මේ රටට තියෙන විශාලතම වින්නැහිය අපට අපේ වැදගත් ආයතනවල ස්වාධීනත්වය. It's the independence of the institutions which we have to protect. We have a new president, we may have a new parliament, But what we've got to achieve is to ensure the independence of our institutions. So to make sure that the state institutions are independent, we have constitutional provisions, but then most of it is observed in the breach. Particularly, all of us know executive presidency is so powerful. Sometimes, one of the, Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe is a very astute politician. But when he sat in that chair, he ignored every single verdict given against him by the Supreme Court. He was so arrogant and so dismissive. He was able to postpone elections at will, ignore judgments of the Supreme Court. See? When it came to appointment of judges, he was, just vacillating and giving all kinds of puerile reasons. And he continued to do that until he was voted out. But this is the problem with the executive presidency. So, ஆனால் அதையெல்லாம் நாங்கள் இந்த நிறைவேற்ற அதிகார ஜனாதிபதி முறையிலே உள்ள குறைகளை திருத்த வேண்டும். ஆனால் அதை முழுமையாக நீக்குவதா இல்லையா என்கின்ற பொறுத்தமட்டில் கேட்டால் நிறைவேற்ற அதிகார ஜனாதிபதி முறைமை சிறுபான்மையினருக்கு ஒரு அதை தீர்மானிக்கிற விஷயத்தில் ஒரு பேரம் பேசும் சக்தியை தருகிறது. அதை நாங்கள் பாதுகாத்துக் கொள்ள வேண்டும் என்ற நிலைப்பாட்டிலே நான் தொடர்ந்தும் இருந்து வந்திருக்கிறேன். ஆனால் அவ்வப்போது ஜனாதிபதிகளுடைய சர்வாதிகார போக்குகளை பார்க்கிற போது இந்த நிறுவனம் எங்களுக்கு தேவைதானா என்று நினைக்க தோன்றும். இன்று புதிய ஜனாதிபதி ஒரு வந்திருக்கிறார். நிறைய பொருத்தங்களை வாக்குறுதிகளை கொடுத்திருக்கிறார். පොරොන්දු රාශියක් ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා අපේ නව ජනාධිපතිතුමන්. නමුත් පොරොන්දු ඉටු කිරීම පිළිබඳව විශේෂයෙන්ම දූෂණයට විරුද්ධව සටන් කිරීම පිළිබඳව තාමත් කතා කරන මිසක් අපි ප්‍රතිඵල දැක්කේ නැහැ. නමුත් අපි මම ආණ්ඩුවේ ඉදිද්දිත් විපක්ෂයේ ඉදිද්දිත් මේ රටේ විශාලතම දූෂණ ක්‍රියාවන් දෙකක් පිළිබඳව මට ඒකට මූලිකත්වය ලබා දීලා ඒකට දායකත්වය ලබා දීලා ඒ පිළිබඳව අවශ්‍ය කටයුතු කරන්න පුළුවන්කම ලැබුණා. මුල්වතාවට වැට් බදු වංචාව මේ දේශීය ආදායම් දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ සිදු වුණු විශාලතම වංචාව විමර්ශනය කළේ මම රාජ්‍ය ගිණුම් කාරක සභාවේ සභාපති හැටියට පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ. පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ සභාගර්භයෙන් පිට තියෙන අපේ කාරක සභාවන් හරහා විශාල වැඩ කටයුත්තක් සිදු වෙනවා. ඒ දේශීය ආදායම් දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ සිදු වුණු විශාලතම වංචාව පිළිබඳව විමර්ශනය කිරීමේ කාර්යභාරය මට ඒකේ සභාපති ධූරය දරද්දී ලැබුණා 2005-6 කාල සීමාවලදී. ඒ වාර්තාව පාර්ලිමේන්තුව ඉදිරිපත් කරලා දේශීය ආදායම් දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ කොමසාරිස්වරු නියෝජ්‍ය කොමසාරිස්වරු ඇතුළු ප්‍රමුඛ පෙළේ ව්‍යාපාරිකයන් කීප දෙනෙක් හිරේ යෑමට සිදු වුණේ මම ඉදිරිපත් කරපු වාර්තාව උඩ කියන එක පිළිබඳව මම සතුටු වෙනවා. ඉතින් එවැනි වංචා ඒ වගේම මෑතකදී ඉම්තියාස් බාකිර් මාකර් කියපු අර වීසා වංචාව ඒකත් අහම්බෙන් වගේ මම දැක්කේ මේ විද්‍යුත් නාලිකාවක අර අපේ ගුවන් තොටුපළේ පෝලිම් ගහගෙන අර වීසා ලබා දෙන විද්‍යුත් පද්ධතියේ ප්‍රශ්නයක්. ඒක උඩ පෝලිමක් හැදෙනවා. මිනිස්සු එතන ඝට්ටනයක් සිදු වුණා. ඒ ගැන දැක්ක ගමන් මොකද කියලා මේක හොයා බලන්න ගියාම තමයි මට හොයාගන්න පුළුවන්කම ලැබුණේ විශාල වංචාවකට තුඩු දෙන කැබිනට් පත්‍රිකාවක් රහසිගතව අනුමත කරගෙන ඒක සිදු වුණායි කියලා. ඒ උඩ මෑතකදී අපි උසාවියට ගිහිල්ලා ඉගෙන පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ මුදල් කාරක සභාවේ ඒක විභාග කරවලා ඒකෙන් වාර්තාව ලබා දීලා ඒ වංචාව පිටුපස තියෙන විශාල සැලැස්ම අපිට රටට එලි දක්වන්න පුළුවන්කම ලැබුණා. With that fraud, we realized what a massive fraud that was. Almost $2.4 billion were to be siphoned out of the country by two dubious companies set up in Dubai and Singapore. When the Supreme Court gave an interim order suspending the operation of the cabinet paper, the Immigration Department dragged its feet, refusing to comply with the order. Two of my colleagues joined me in going to the Supreme Court, challenging this fraudulent contract, and we were able to finally convince the Supreme Court to even find the controller of immigration to be in contempt of the Supreme Court, and he was remanded over that issue. So these fraudulent activities we were able to expose through our robust using Parliament as a forum to expose corruption. So current regime talks about exposing corruption. We have already done it while in government and outside, but yet we wish if new steps can be taken up, particularly when I talk about independence of the institutions, it is very important. අපි ආයතනවල ස්වාධීනත්වය ගැන කතා කරනකොට විශේෂයෙන්ම අපේ නීතිපති දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව සහ පොලිස් දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව වැදගත් ආයතන දෙකක් ස්වාධීනව කටයුතු කළා නම් කිසිම දේශපාලන ඇඟිලි ගැසීමකින් තොර ඒක සිදු වුණා නම් අපගේ ප්‍රධාන අමුත්‍යෙක් වන ෆයිස්මිත්තුමා මැතිතුමන් නීතිපති දෙපාර්තමේ ඉන්න කාලේ තිබුණා public prosecutions department කියලා එකක්. ඉතින් ඒ වගේ නොයෙකුත් ඒ ස්වාධීනත්වය තහවුරු කරන ව්‍යවස්ථා සංශෝධන තියෙනවා. ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ අඩංගු කරුණු තියෙනවා. නමුත් නිතර දේශපාලන ඇඟිලි ගැසීම් වලින් ඒ ස්වාධීනත්වය කෙලෙසෙන නොයෙකුත් දේවල් සිදු වෙනවා කියන එකත් අපි දැකලා තියෙනවා. එබැවින් තමයි අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ අලුතෙන් ආණ්ඩුවක් පිහිටුවගෙන අලුතෙන් ආණ්ඩු පක්ෂයෝ විපක්ෂයෝ ඉදගෙන මේ රටේ උන්නති වෙනුවෙන් අපි වැටිලා තියෙන මේ ආර්ථික අගාධයෙන් රට ගොඩ ගන්නට නම් මේ දූෂණය පිළිබඳව කටයුතු කරද්දී අපේ ආයතන ටික ශක්තිමත් කරන විතරක් නෙවෙයි ඒ ස්වාධීනත්වය අපි තහවුරු කළ යුතුයි කියන ඒ කියමන කෙමින් මම දීර්ඝ කතාවක් කරන්නට අදහස් කරන්නේ உண்மையில் இந்த நிகழ்வை மாரிப் தொழுகைக்கு முன்பாக முடித்துக்கொள்ள வேண்டும் என்று நாங்கள் விரும்பியிருந்தோம். அந்த அடிப்படையில் நிறைவு செய்ய வேண்டிய ஒரு என்னுடைய உரையை நான் எழுந்தமானமாக சில துணுக்குகளை மாத்திரம் என்னுடைய நீண்ட அரசியல் வாழ்வில் சந்தித்த சவால்கள் பலவற்றையும் நாங்கள் எதிர்கொண்ட நெருக்கடிகள் சம்பந்தமாகவும் சில விஷயங்களை பேசுகின்ற வாய்ப்பு கிடைத்தது. அந்த வாய்ப்புக்கு நன்றி கூறுகின்ற அதே நேரம் உங்கள் எல்லோரையும் இந்த நிகழ்வில் சந்திக்க கிடைக்கின்ற இந்த சந்தர்ப்பத்துக்கும் நீண்ட தூரம் இருந்து இந்த நிகழ்வுக்காக வந்திருக்கின்ற என்னுடைய ஆதரவாளர்களுக்கும் நண்பர்களுக்கும் என்னுடைய நன்றியை சமர்ப்பித்து இந்த உரைகள் அடங்கிய இந்த தொகுப்பை கொண்டு வருவதில் ஆசிரியர்களாக பணிபுரிந்த ப்ரொஃபஸர் ஹுசேமியா, நண்பர் ஆசிஃப் ஹுசேன், இந்த குழுவுக்கு புறம்பாக இன்னும் பலர் திரைமறைவிலே நிறைய இதுக்கு பங்களிப்பு செய்திருக்கிறார்கள். அவர்களை பற்றி சிலருடைய பெயரை குறிப்பிடவும் வேண்டாம் என்றும் சொல்லியிருக்கிறார்கள். அதனால் நான் குறிப்பிட முடியாது. இருந்தாலும் இது ஒரு 6 மாத கால பணியை 1 மாத காலத்துக்குள் முடிக்கிற ஒரு மிக கடினமான பொறுப்பை இவர்கள் செய்தார்கள் என்பதற்காக அவர்கள் நன்றி கூறிக்கொள்கின்ற அதே வேளை இன்னும் பல நண்பர்கள் இங்கு சைஃப், ரிஸ்மி, வசீர் என்று பலரை குறிப்பிடலாம். இப்படி நிறைய பேர் இந்த நிகழ்வை ஏற்பாடு செய்வதில் என்னுடைய 2 மகள்மாரோடும் என்னுடைய துணைவியாரோடும் சேர்ந்து நிறைய உழைத்திருக்கிறார்கள். அவர் எல்லோருக்கும் என்னுடைய பணிவான நன்றியறிதலை தெரிவித்து நிறைவு செய்கிறேன். நன்றி. வார்தாவான் அல்ஹம்துலில்லாஹி ரப்பில் ஆலமீன். அஸ்ஸலாமு அலைக்கும்.